Friends, today is Monday, the 12th of October. It's Columbus Day. It's a kind of a holiday, but also my day off. So I'm back in my room this morning, taking a look at today's gospel. And once again, we have a few things to consider in today's gospel. The gospel starts out in the words of Jesus: "This generation is an evil generation. This generation is an evil generation, and it seeks a sign. It seeks a sign." You know, I couldn't help but think of kids out playing, who somebody will say something and the other one will respond to it, "Well, prove it. Prove it to me. Prove it." You know, back and forth, kids arguing, "Prove it." Well, that's kind of what the crowd is doing here. It says, "Still more people gathered, seeking a sign," basically telling Jesus to prove it. Prove it. And Jesus, in response, says that this is an evil generation seeking a sign. And no sign will be given to it except the sign of Jonah. Except the sign of Jonah. An evil generation. You know, I've mentioned before that the scriptures are always present, speaking to us. And so Jesus says to us, we are that evil generation. Whether we seek a sign or not, look what's going wrong around our fractured society today. And I couldn't help but think of our Holy Father, Pope Francis's new encyclical. You might have heard that on the 4th of October, the Holy Father in Assisi, St. Francis' home in Assisi, published his new encyclical, and it's called Fratelli Tutti. Fratelli Tutti. Two Italian words of St. Francis himself, which means all brothers and sisters. Francis used to say when he preached and when he spoke, "Fratelli tutti," all of you, brothers and sisters, listen. And the encyclical is a meditation on our current situation. And the opening chapter of it has a kind of very ominous title to it. It says, dark clouds over a closed world." First chapter of the new encyclical, Dark Cloud. It's a social encyclical, we might say, an encyclical that deals with the social issues and problems of today. And that first chapter sets the tone. And it's a very dark chapter, dark clouds over a closed world. Speaking of our contemporary society, some of the things that are at least mentioned in this opening chapter, dealt with in greater detail later, but at least mentioned the fact that there's a breakdown in our democratic societies. Issues of liberty and justice and freedom are sort of cast out the window. Other issues, the loss of meaning in our culture. Also the selfishness and indifference of people towards others, selfishness that ignores the common good. Everything is me, my good, but ignores the common good. Our whole market society, the logic of the market society that looks primarily at profit and turns our culture into a culture of waste. All the waste that we see in our society. Other issues, racism, slavery, human trafficking, and so on. One could kind of despair that somehow we'll never break out of that. But the Pope doesn't, of course, and basically challenges us. We still have time to do something. We can make changes. We can listen to the gospel, we can listen to his words and make changes. And that aspect of listening is what is so important in our gospel today, the sign of Jonah. The sign of Jonah. You know, when you think of Jonah and the whale. Jonah swallowed up by the whale, spent 3 days and 3 nights, a kind of echo, a kind of precursor, a kind of reminder of the resurrection. Jesus spent 3 days in the tomb and then rose, even as Jonah was swallowed up and once again kind of spit up onto land. But the context of the gospel doesn't seem to want to emphasize so much the belly of the whale as to the effectiveness of Jonah's preaching. Jonah was sent to Nineveh, a Gentile, pagan country, challenged by the Lord to preach that a sinful city needed to undergo conversion. And of course, Jonah didn't want to do that. It's too difficult. Who am I to speak to them? But he does. He preaches, and lo and behold, even the king, all the people and the king turn around and undergo conversion, the sign of Jonah. Jesus, of course, compares it to his own preaching, to which people do not listen. And yet, if they did, they would undergo that same conversion. And he says that in the end, at the time of judgment, the people of Nineveh will arise and point their fingers at the current generation who didn't listen. We listened, and we, of course, entered into the kingdom. The example of the queen of the south who comes to listen to Solomon, King Solomon. She, a Gentile, listened to him, a prophet and a king. Jesus is prophet and king. Do we listen to him? If we do, we don't have to worry about that judgment day. No one will arise to point their finger at us because we will have listened, heard, underwent conversion, and thus enter the kingdom. Listen, undergo conversion, enter the kingdom. Hold those thoughts today on this Columbus Day, and we'll see you tomorrow.